I'll move that over there. Perfect. Good. Great. Yeah. So we are recording the session. We'll send this out afterwards. Be on YouTube. Thanks for being here. So good to see everybody. It's a wonderful, beautiful afternoon. We have a great day. All kinds of different speakers and everything. And this one is all about how to create your own vanilla extract. Which, whenever I'm doing herb walks or the medicine making class, I often like to joke that everybody here has a herbal tincture in their house that they probably don't even know is a herbal tincture. Vanilla extract. So as you learn how to make your own vanilla extract, you're actually going to learn how to make your own herbal tinctures. So it's kind of a twofer in that sense. And yeah, we all know, love, and appreciate vanilla. And yeah, we'll talk about vanilla, different forms that it comes in, and then most importantly, how to create your own extract. Something that we've been doing in house, that I've been doing in my own personal house for a number of years. And oh boy, I lament the days. I remember the days when I used to buy vanilla beans by the pound, like just yeah, huge stacks of them. Like it might even shock you. Like I think, am I mistaken? Was it $16 for like a huge thing of vanilla? Like the earliest that I can remember. I don't know how long ago this was, close to 20 years ago. Now you'd lucky if you get one bean for $16, right? Yeah. And so there's a reason for that. Did you know that vanilla is the most labor intensive agricultural product in the world? It's absolutely insane, actually, what it goes through. So, what is vanilla? It's actually the fruit of an orchid. It's the fruit of an orchid. Yeah. And so you can't actually plant them by seed. You know, the vanilla pods, they are full of seeds. But those seeds aren't viable because of the process that it goes through. So it's typically cuttings of the vanilla orchid that they'll use to grow. So then it takes anywhere from 16 months to 3 years for that orchid cutting to then develop enough to start producing flowers. So then once you have the flowers, you literally have just a few hours window to pollinate it, or then the flower just kind of like dies. Anywhere outside of where vanilla actually anywhere vanilla grows outside of the origin. So where does it come from? It comes from actually Mexico and Central America is the origin of vanilla. Anywhere else where they grow it, like Papua New Guinea, Madagascar, you know, number of different countries, there's no native pollinators, actually. So it needs to be hand pollinated. So you've got a cutting, you've grown it for, you know, year and a half to 3 years just to get to the point where it now flowers. And within a narrow window of a few hours, you have to hand pollinate each of the flowers. And then it'll take 9 months for the pod to develop. And then once the pod is developed, then you're going to take it and it goes through a fermentation and a curing process, which is even longer and it's turned and all this stuff. They say each pod before it goes to market is handled hundreds of times. Unbelievable. Yeah, so it is a real rare treat. And of course, vanilla being so kind of wonderful and amazing, they've tried to replicate it, right? The synthetics, and the closest we've got is vanillin, which is just one compound in vanilla versus it's estimated that there's about 500 compounds in vanilla. So one versus 500, right? There's missing a whole sort of complexity when it comes to the flavor and the aromatics of vanilla. And vanilla is actually a herb. You know, we primarily use it in our culture just as flavor. Does anybody know the herbal properties of vanilla? Any ideas? Any guesses? No. Well, maybe we should stick our nose in a jar and just see what we feel when we smell the vanilla. Ah, yeah, it's so calming. Aphrodisiac, that's right. That's put out there. I hope you feel that too. But at least for today, it's just like in this moment. I'm not inviting that. I'm inviting the calming, the relaxing. So, all right. So yeah, that is some vanilla powder. I actually don't even have any beans in front of me. We're going to work with a powder. It comes in various different forms. You know, you can have what's called the caviar, which is literally just the seeds inside the vanilla pod. And you would know if it was the caviar based upon price, if that's what you actually had. This vanilla powder that we're passing around is the whole bean, just dried and ground up. So it's the pod, everything. So even though the seeds may be kind of like, you know, the caviar, the more luxurious, you know, the pod itself also contains all those compounds and richness of beauty. Somebody asked earlier if there are any kind of additives in that. Not here, but for sure you can get a lot of corners cut in the market, not only with the extracts, but definitely with the powder. Sometimes the vanilla powder that you buy is actually after they've already made the extract, and really, all that goodness has been pulled out of it, and then they have the dried powder left over that they'll sell as vanilla powder. Again, I think yeah. Did you get a whiff? All right, excellent.
So the powder you're selling here is
whole bean,
but hasn't gone through main extract.
Exactly,
so
yeah. All the benefits, yeah, out of the seeds, full flavor, full aroma.
Flavor-wise, going to be similar to vanilla or more intense?
Okay, really good question. So similar to the vanilla, so what do you mean in terms of are you asking the difference between the extract and the powder, or the beans versus the powder? Yeah. Okay. So practically, when you use the vanilla powder, and I just shared this with somebody that's had some, and they're like, I don't know how to use it. So the powder is much more concentrated. So where you would use a teaspoon of extract, you could use a quarter teaspoon of powder. Yeah. So you can use much less, and you put it anywhere, right? Obviously, we know it goes very well with chocolate, and ice cream. Yeah. Creams, custards, puddings, all that type of stuff. Yeah, it's got, I think, a very kind of grounding, very calming property. So medicinally, we were just talking about that, has been used in that way to actually calm, in particular, the stomach. It's considered a stomach tonic. It's considered calming to the nerves. Maybe that's why it maybe pairs really well with chocolate. Chocolate's a bit more of kind of an excitant, like an energy stimulant. And then that vanilla just comes in and nicely grounds it. So, although I do know chocolate purists that are like, no, you can't add vanilla to chocolate. It's a nice combination. We know that. But this would be more from the perspective of if like bean to bar, where they want to taste the pureness of the origin of the cacao, then no vanilla. But if you're going, they want the terroir, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
The fake ones, artificial ones, and some are so clear where this is like artificial.
Right.
There's like Costco soap, and it's a vanilla extract. And when I look at it, the ingredients, I can see. Has anybody bought that one? It's like 3 things, so I feel like it's neat.
Right.
But it's very and I feel like it actually isn't, and I'm trying to figure out how you decipher, which part do they have to know if it's an actual plant versus.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah. If it's $9, then you might want to question it, and I know Costco's amazing in terms of sometimes I look at their prices, how did they get that for that cost? They're miracle workers when it comes to bulk buying and shipping, and all their logistics to really take a lot of that overhead off. Yeah, their labeling should be good. Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So typically, a really good extract, it should just be vanilla and alcohol. Typically, it's 35% is kind of like the standard for the alcohol percentage, ABV. It's called alcohol by volume of a vanilla extract. Anything beyond that, like glycerin, not the end of the world. In herbalism and even within the extract industry, glycerin is sometimes used instead of alcohol, or kind of as well as. To me, it's got a weird consistency. It's like a sweetness to it. I don't really like glycerin or use it. It's one of those things that's like vegetable glycerin, like vegetable oil, right? What is it? Where do they get it? How do they get this clear kind of viscous substance? Yeah, but it is quite common, and it could, yeah. So, and I know there's controversy on the internet too of Mexican vanilla, because they don't have as strict labeling laws, and a lot of tourists and that type of thing. So yeah, price can be an indication, but this is the idea of making it ourselves. Yeah, for sure. Jason? 6 beans for $25. for Madagascar. Yeah, okay. Little vial. Nice. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, and then yeah, go ahead.
So let's say you get this.
Yeah.
How long can you air dry off? So how long can you keep them?
Oh, great question. So vanilla beans, once they've gone through that curing process, the best, freshest ones still have like kind of a moistness to them, and they're typically, sealed up in plastic or a little glass jar to help preserve the freshness. Worst thing that's going to happen to them is they just dry out. I had some vanilla beans that were like 5 years old, and they were, hard as sticks, but could still be used, just not quite as fresh. But they'll never go bad per se. It's just a more a matter of kind of drying out, and then depending if it's open to the air, if it's in direct sunlight, you're gonna like degrade it, but it won't ever go bad. It's not gonna mold. It's not gonna go off. It'll just dry out. In terms of shelf life,
I bought in Mexico, I think that Singapore vanilla beans
yeah.
was less than $5.
Okay, 3 vanilla beans for less than 5. Sounds good. You bring us back a suitcase next time, huh?
What I was buying,
Right.
but it was in the market, so you need to be able to.
Oh, yeah.
It's not realistic.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's maybe how you get the deals, right? I mean, you go to India, you go to these places, like if you know where you're going and what you're looking for, you can get really good deals. But yeah, for those of us in North America, we get what we can type of thing. So within the orchids, I think there's 25,000 different species. There's more than 100,000 different hybrids, but there's only one that produces the vanilla pod. Yeah, and there's many different types of vanilla. So obviously we have our two most common, the vanilla planifolia and vanilla tahitianensis, if I'm pronouncing that right. Those are the two main commercial ones, but there's lots of different sub varieties. And yeah, like I say, just all the steps involved, plus the hand pollination, the curing, and just time and time and time to get it to what we know it as is quite a process. So a rare treat, and yeah, as I mentioned, one can work, with the beans, cut them open, just using the seeds. And even when I had those beans, I would often, use the seeds, and then the pod that was scraped out still had so much goodness. That's what I would then make my extract with. We're going to make extract with the whole vanilla bean, just ground up. And like I say, this is exactly how you would make any herbal tincture. And so this brings up a point, when you go to the extract aisle, right? You find your vanilla. Sometimes you can find orange extract or peppermint extract or, almond, these kinds of things. And they can be made in the same way. So we go ahead, Tamara.
Powder, not necessarily the whole. I great. So with vanilla, use the pot and that, or you say orange extract or something. But you're saying the ground up powder is typically.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you're making your own vanilla extract, if you got the whole bean, you can use that. You could use just the seeds. You could use the seeds for something else, and then the pod that's like been scraped, or the whole thing ground up, which is what we're using. Yeah. Yeah. Great point. Yeah. Yeah, and the like an almond extract, you get that real kind of amaretto type flavor to it. Yeah, and you could use any other herb. And I'll reference this here later on. This is a Materia Medica by a guy named Michael Moore, not the filmmaker, but the herbalist. And because as we get into this, as we talk about alcohol and extracts, there's various percentages that we're going to be after and using. So, we were just talking about pine pollen earlier. Pine pollen is typically extracted at 70%, 1 to 5. So 1 gram per 5 mils of alcohol. A lot of other herbs are, some are 1 to 3, some are 1 to 2, some are 1 to 1. Vanilla, in a lot of my research that I came up with, just to see how other people do it, is typically a 1 to 8. And if you've ever heard of like single fold and double fold of vanilla, it refers to the strength. So single and double, this would probably be more like a single, a 1 to 8. A double fold would be a 1 to 4. And I'm sure there's variations on that. But again, this means per gram of vanilla, you're going to do mils, 8 mils of extract at minimum 35%. And the reason is you would never want to do an extract lower than 20% alcohol by volume, because anything lower than 20%, it'll actually spoil. It won't preserve it. So what's the alcohol doing apart from giving us a good time? No. Alcohol is used for a number of reasons. Its ability to extract. It's a solvent, right? So if you put something in alcohol, it just pulls and extracts those compounds into itself. So we're transferring all the goodness of vanilla into the alcohol. So it's really good as extracting the compounds, and then it's also preserving it too. So even though vanilla will, if stored properly, will last for years, worst thing it's going to do is dry out. The extract will outlast it, by a factor of 10 easily. So really good extracting, really good at preserving. And then it's also a really good delivery system. Like it's very easy, like, oh, teaspoon of extract, that type of thing. But then also for vanilla, but also herbs is actually, it delivers it into your body, into your system. So it's like instantly into the bloodstream with herbal tinctures. Okay, so minimum 20% to prevent spoilage, but within kind of vanilla extract and industry, 35% is kind of the magic number. There are some herbs that 35% isn't strong enough. There's certain compounds like resins. If you think of frankincense, if you think of like poplar buds, bee propolis, 35% does okay, but it needs a much higher percentage of alcohol to really like dissolve everything and get it pulled out. That's not the case here. 35% is fine. So you could, when it comes to choice of alcohol, you could just use vodka, plain vodka. And that's totally fine. That was typically going to come in 40%, or what's referred to as 80% proof. That terminology of proof, does anybody know where that comes from? No. Okay. So there's actually there's a British measurement and there's an American measurement, and it relates to naval times when sailors were paid part of their wages in alcohol. And how could they prove they were not being diluted, right? So 100% proof is at the point at which it can light on fire. So if the alcohol burns and it lights, like easily, quickly, that's proof that it hasn't been diluted. So that's where 100 proof came from, which is 50%, depending on which American or British measurement you're looking at. So you could absolutely use 40%, just a vodka. And then again, so 1 gram for 8 mils. You could make it stronger. We could make it 1 to 4. We could make it 1 to 5. Totally up to you. 1 to 1. I mean, yeah. So here's the challenge with the 1 to 1, right? I bet you 1 gram is more volume than 1 mil. So it's just going to be this kind of like paste, muckiness in that sense. Yeah. So this is something you can play with. I would say maybe above 1 to 8 may not be strong enough. So up to you. We're gonna go with I don't know, what should we do today? 1 to 8, 1 to 5, 1 to 5. Okay, we'll do that. Sure. Okay, that'll make it easy for math too. By 5, because I have in this jar 40 grams of vanilla powder. So times 8, 200 mils. No problem. Yeah, easy to do. So that's almost a cup of vanilla extract. And if you think about kind of cost wise, in terms of your vodka, cup, 200 mils, 250 mils of a 750 ml bottle, $40 type of thing, divide by 3. It's not too much in alcohol content. A little bit more expensive in the vanilla. So that's the other where you can kind of like, you know what, a 1 to 4, that's too expensive. 1 to 8, 1 to 10, you can kind of play with your ratio there. And then the other thing I want to put out there, and we're going to taste a couple of ones that I've made, is you can bring in other botanicals. So this one here is a vanilla extract with cacao and chaga, because why not? Yeah. Now you want to make sure that the flavors work. And I thought, well, chaga, it's often described as having these like kind of vanilla-like qualities. It's dark, it's earthy. Perfect. Well, chocolate, that was an obvious one. So this is a cacao, vanilla, and chaga extract. And yeah, October 31. I bet you this was done 3 years ago. I didn't put a date on it, a year. So I also didn't put the extraction ratios or anything. So yeah. Well, and actually, this would be an example of like folk herbalism, right? Where it's just, like here's the folk method, which is what Denis calls the rule of thumb. It's like fill a jar with a herb and cover with enough, like about a thumb's measurement above the herbs, right? The folk method versus the very kind of specific, okay, this many grams and this many mils and so on and so forth. So yeah, we're going to taste that one. I also have another one. And actually, this one here, actually, these ones are both in rum. Okay, so vodka would be described as a neutral spirit, right? Like very neutral, no flavor. And it's really going to take on the flavor of the vanilla, and that's what you'll get. If you use rum, well, you're going to get a nice kind of base note of rum. Hey, if that's your flavor preference, go for it. Another one that's very commonly used is brandy, right? So depending on the energetic, because each of the alcohols has a different kind of like energetic, like rum tends to be a little bit more warming, a little bit more fiery. Vodka, again, very neutral. We're not using gin because that's got so many other flavors and botanicals in it, but gin is actually very cooling. It was Dr. Terry Willard. He says, I think that's how the British conquered the world, right? They went all these like hot places, like, colonizing, and they were drinking their gin and they kept their calm and they're cool. Whereas the Spanish were all fired up on rum and Oh, really good question. So the difference in percentage, they generally are all 40%. So here's the brandy, 40%. Here's the rum, that one, 40%. That's pretty much the standard. You can work with, this one here is from Poland. It's called a rectified spirit, and it's 192 proof or 96%. Now, it is far too much alcohol, high alcohol content that you would use it straight. So where I might lean towards this is, okay, 40% vodka, let's just call it $40. 96%, neutral spirit, this one might be run you $50. So it's $10 more, but you're getting 2.5 times the volume of alcohol. Yeah, so yeah. Yeah, so select liquor stores will sell it. Like Silver Springs has got it, Crowfoot Liquor, I'm pretty sure. Co-op used to, they don't anymore. So it just depends. There's another one called Everclear, and that's an American one. I don't love the Everclear because it's made from GMO corn. Yeah, and you're not going to get, I don't know, just GMO and all that stuff. It's just what industry supporting kind of thing. So depending on the source, yeah. But anyways, this one here at 96%, you can dilute it down to 35 just by adding water. A white rum. Okay, cool. So a white rum at 50%, you could either use it just strong as is, or you add just a little bit of water to bring it down to 35. Yeah.
Everclear or it's locked up.
That's a great point. Yeah, yeah. So Don is just mentioning that, right, they have to get a ladder. Yeah, so it might be kind of hidden away from reach. And did you know that we're one of the few provinces in Canada that you actually buy this high of alcohol? Like if you live in Ontario, forget it. 50% I think is the highest. If you live in BC, 70% is the highest. It's called Spiritus Rectica Fawani, or rectified spirit. Yeah, really good question. Yeah, so when you're going to dilute it, so let's say, so usually I kind of do more crude math. So let's say we want 50%. It's literally just a 1-to-1 ratio. So if I take this and turn it into 50%, I'll now have a liter and a half because I've added 750 mils of alcohol, 750 mils of water, and for all intents and purposes, it's 48.5, or no, 47.5, right? For 96. Yeah, somewhere around there. Yeah. And then if to do 35, I won't even try to do the math on the spot in this moment, but you just add water to get it. So that makes sense. Or I wouldn't do this with vanilla, but with other herbs, instead of adding water, I'll add tea, and tea of the herb that I'm tincturing. So if I'm doing peppermint, for instance, and peppermint, let's say, actually here, let's reference the Herbal Materia Medica by Michael Moore, because I'm sure peppermint's got to be in here. Actually, let's do anise, because that's in here. Star anise, or anise seed. So what this book here, and it doesn't do it for every single plant, but there it will give you kind of the ideal alcohol percentage for different herbs. So for instance, and it's all by Latin name. So, burdock is done at 60%. Dogbane is done at 50%. And again, it's due to the compounds in the plant that you're tincturing and how well or easily does it extract. It's kind of like the equivalent of when you're making a tea. Does it steep really easily and extract well in hot water, or does it like tough and woody and you got to do a decoction? Certain herbs with these resins or these oils, these different compounds aren't going to extract very well in water or a low alcohol, so they need a higher percentage of alcohol. Nice. Ah, yeah. Yeah, so great. So just a comment that was made about a vanilla bean stuck into alcohol that's been sitting there for a few years. Doesn't look, it's only just kind of tinged amber. So I bet what's the ratio? How much does the vanilla weigh compared to how big is your bottle, for instance? Right. So 750 mils, one bean. Yeah, it's just going to barely tinge the water kind of thing, or tinge the liquid. If you look online with they're using beans, it's usually like, 6 to 8 beans in like quite a bit of volume. And that's where we can get really specific. Okay, how much does the vanilla weigh? And we get a proper like concentrate extract. Yeah. And then the other thing too is surface area too. So like cutting up that bean or, pulverizing it, more surface area versus a whole pod kind of sealed up in the alcohol. Yeah, but absolutely. I bet you could. Yeah, you could pull that out, cut it up, and maybe just add more to it too. Yeah. But in terms of like quality, it's still going to be totally good. It's been basically preserved in that bottle all that time in the alcohol. Okay, well let's demonstrate that. I guess I got to do my math now first, hey? So if we're gonna do, I said 200 mils at a 1-to-8. Now we just need to figure out how to get our 35%. So if we have 96% alcohol, how much water do I need to dilute it down to? I know, Donna, you're really good at this. No? Okay. Well, we said if we double it, we get to 47%. And then if we add another, a little bit. I like that, Jason. We'll add a little bit. Yeah, we'll kind of eyeball it. Okay.
26.
Right. Okay, well, let's do this. Yeah, so 65% of 200 mils. No, I've got 40 grams of powder, 200 mils of liquid, and 65% of it is going to be water, 35% of it is going to be alcohol. Well, well, actually, wait a minute. 70. Okay. Actually, I'm going to use the brandy anyways. Yeah. But let me first, like, let's taste these things, right? Okay, let's taste first, and then we got 10 minutes. We're all good. Yeah. All right. There is at 4 o'clock. Yeah. So yeah, we could go on for sure. All right. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so we have 4 different extracts to try. We've got 2 that are just pure vanilla. So this one here was done in the spiritus, the vodka. And this was done a long time ago. I still had it just kind of hanging out. So we'll taste that one first, and you can kind of see like this one's a little bit, it's not quite as dark, you know? Then this one here is done in brandy, a little bit darker, a little bit more concentrated. And then the other ones we have, like I mentioned, are kind of like additions of medicinal mushrooms and chaga. We're going to taste them 2 different ways because, again, and this will just provide a bit of context, 35% alcohol. Like I gave somebody a tincture the other day and like, whoa, that just tastes like a shot. And it's like, yeah, like straight right on the tongue. But if we think about 2 things we can think about, in the form of a tincture straight, this is 2 ounces. Is that right? 60 mils. Yeah, 2 ounces. Yeah, right. People go to the bar, they order two ounces and they shoot it down. Like that's a shot, right? Kind of thing. But we're not drinking the whole thing. Yeah, typically, right? A few drops into your baking, whatever, and then alcohol will often burn off as well. So just context when you taste it, it's like, oh my gosh, this is super boozy. That's what vanilla extract is. But in context, it's going to get the flavor will remain, but the alcohol will kind of burn off in that sense. So and I'll just say how we're going to taste it. You can just put a little bit on the back of your hand. Actually, I'll pass a little spoon around as well. And so imagine vodka, just a plain neutral spirit, but we've got that, you'll be able to taste that vanilla. And then just so it's not so boozy, I'm going to actually mix it into coconut butter if you want to try it that way.
Spoon to everybody.
Yeah. And actually I've got there, lots more there.
And versus taste.
Right.
Taste.
I mean, you'll taste it. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, vanilla's bringing it all. It's bringing those aromatics as well as the taste. But you'll taste the alcohol as well as the vanilla, at least in this context. And then when we put it into coconut butter, it'll be a little bit, a little bit different. More of like, I was like, we should make cookie batter and then just eat that with the vanilla.
Just hang on to your spoon. Is it longer than?
Oh, okay, duration. So how long? Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, great. Good point. So, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let's I'm just gonna finish this off here and then we'll talk about that for how long, which is kind of like the next step. Okay, so 200 mils. And okay. And we're at just a touch of water because we're going from yeah. Yeah, perfect. Okay. So a great question came from Cyrene, and I just want to just kind of finish this off so we can showcase it. So this is our 1 to 8, 40 grams to 200 mils. So there's some brandy, and I added just a little bit of water because it was 40% to start. We're going down to 35. And then we just pour that over top. And again, you might find, maybe that's too strong, right? You can always, you can get more volume. You could do a 1 to 10. You could do a 1 to 16, whatever you want. And then we just give it a shake up. And now the question of that Serene had is like, how long do we leave this? How long can we leave it? Now, lesson learned, I'm going to get a sticky label and I'll write on it, right? The date, the year. That's important. And then the ratio if you want, maybe the type of bean, the source where you got it, that all can be used. Okay, and then Donna, yeah, just use the same dropper. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so now we want to let this sit minimum 2 weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks at a minimum to fully extract, though maybe a month is better. And maybe you might even want to line it up with the moon. Oh, it's a new moon. We're going to go to the full moon, or we're going to do a whole lunar cycle. Maker's choice. You can pray over it. You can put intentions into it. All these good things. One thing I would recommend, especially for the powder, is, at least, let's say if you're going to do a month, at least once per week, you give it a shake, right? Because a lot of that powder is just going to kind of sediment on the bottom. So if once during the week, you just give it a shake, that's all. And you just put it back down and just let it continue to sit. And at any time, you can either just use as is, the powder's quite fine, or you can strain it off. So it's totally up to you. Oh, yeah, great question. So in adding the water, will it contribute to molding? And the answer is no, because it's higher than the 20-25%. If it was lower than that, then we have a risk of it molding. But the fact that it's still, at least 35%, it'll maintain its integrity. Yeah. Yeah. So if okay, it's like 10 years later, right? Still good. Yeah. I think just for function, like that one is just full of like debris. It's got chaga powder and cacao nibs and beans and that type of thing. Yeah, a couple of reasons. Just strain all that fiber out, so it's just easier to use. It's not going to clog up the bottle. Other reason is oftentimes when you strain it, you can still use what you've just strained out, actually. Yeah, make a tea or let the powder dry out and just kind of use it that way. Oh, really good question. Yeah, so you can do another extract out of it as well. So typically you could take those same, 40 grams, and then I'd probably use half the volume of liquid again. It won't be as strong on a second extract. And again, that's the same principle as tea, where, yeah, you brew it up and then you can re-extract it. I know this, I almost hesitated not to serve it this way because it's so it's very medicinal and boozy and yeah, it's so much depth and flavors. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, totally. Okay, so that one, that was rum, right? So the first one was the neutral spirit. The second one was brandy. The third one was rum. So it's maker's choice. The rum just gives you just more kind of depth of flavor. Plus, we added cacao and chaga. So again, further depth of flavors going on there. Yeah.
Cut them in half.
I cut them in half. Yeah. And I bet you I added powder to that as well.
So they're usually quite long. So
yeah, as well. Yeah, essentially that's what we're working with here. It's the vanilla powder, just a bean, just ground right up. Yeah.
Just going back to your comment about straining it out. So there's some people, and there's actually been some cultures like the Dutch and stuff, will take the vanilla pod after it's been had the seed scraped or been extracted or whatever.
Yeah.
And just dry it off, put it like in a container of sugar.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, for sure.
Honey.
Yeah. Coffee, right. Yeah. So even once you've done the extract, the bean or the powder itself, great point. Throw it into sugar, coffee, honey, and just let it kind of infuse into that. Yeah, nice.
You have to dry that pod off first, let it dry.
Right. Yeah. Okay. All right. Do we want to try it kind of in context with a little bit of coconut butter? Oh, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, so good. All right. So what we'll just do the brandy one and the rum version. So this other one that we haven't tasted yet, this one is vanilla reishi and chaga. So very similar, but we'll use the chocolate one. Here we are. We'll mix that in. I don't know if my ratios are any good here, but
Take off your spoon around drop.
Okay, maybe what we should do, let's do the coconut butter first, just plain. Then we'll do the vanilla. Then we'll do the chaga reishi.
Just the coconut butter.
Yeah.
And this is the one that's stone grind.
That's right.
You guys ready for a treat? You have not tried the stone ground coconut butter. This is
I got the massive jug.
In the big tub? Yeah. Yeah.
Big coconut meat, right?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. It is so smooth. Yeah.
Consistency, and you can like spread it on.
Yeah, it's the dried coconut flakes. Yeah, so all the fiber, all the fat, just ground right up. So imagine if we took peanuts and ground them for 7 days. Yeah, but this is we do that with a coconut. Yeah, low temperature. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Okay. Other properties of vanilla as a herb. So we've got stomach tonic, so calms the stomach, calms the nerves and soothes the spirit, as well as can treat asthma, congestion, coughs, and apparently vanilla was also used as a salve for syphilis. Do you believe it? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so now we got our baseline of like just pure coconut butter. So this one here is the coconut with vanilla done with a brandy. And then this one with the rum, but also with the cacao. Yeah. And it's just kind of a nicer, softer way to taste the vanilla, like in a fat, mix it with butter and sugar and eggs. Oh, right. Okay. Asthma, congestion, and coughs. But I think overwhelmingly, yeah, aphrodisiac and calming the nerves and soothing the spirit. It's the primary kind of like medicinal action of vanilla.
And what is the tincture in food like that, or is it in tea, vanilla tea or something?
It's anything, right? And actually, you weren't here when we just stuck our nose in the vanilla jar to experience that. Just even smelling it, right? The aromatics. Yeah. I found some other stuff interesting about it too. Well, we know the flavor of it, is an enhancer. They say that it makes, this is why they add it to yogurts, that makes low fat taste better, right? So like fat obviously gives us flavor. It gets us like satiation when we consume fat. But if they're doing like a low fat something, vanilla is often added to kind of give that a bit more like full body to the flavor experience. And then so conversely, and I don't subscribe to this, so if you're trying to reduce your calories and go on a low fat diet, make sure you use lots of vanilla so you don't start craving fats. And I'm like, no, just go for the fats. Go for the, you need to have them. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. And with any nutrient, something like sugar can get demonized, fat can get demonized. Like first and foremost, it's all about the quality that you got, and then the quantity is determinate from there.
This is the vanilla
cacao. Yeah. All right. Okay, well, we're all good. You're all inspired. Feel confident now. Make your own vanilla extract. Yeah, excellent.
Can you talk about the ratio?
Yeah, okay. So however much vanilla you have, and I just chose 40 grams because that's what a jar like this is here. It's typically a 1 to 8. So for every gram, you're going to add 8 mils of your 35% alcohol. Now you could, play with that. If you want it even stronger, right? Because less alcohol, more vanilla, it could be a 1 to 4, but it could also be 1 to 10 or 1 to 16. You can play with that. And what she had done with one vanilla bean and 750 mils, I bet you that was like a 1 to 30. It's too dilute. So the lower that number gets, the stronger it is. Yeah, because you can even tell it's already beginning to kind of sediment out a little bit. And then as that sits, maybe after a few days, it'll really kind of, I wouldn't say cement down, but it'll really kind of more solidify. So that's why at least once a week, you want to give it a shake. Yeah. Just a smidge of water. It was still 200 mils. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as accurate as this is going to be, looking at on the side. So. All right. Okay, well, we better take a break, switch things over. Next up, Angela Buick.